if you're a vendor who serves the cybersecurity space, then you definitely don't want to miss out on this conversation that I have with the Ron Eddings from Hacker Valley Media, who goes into great detail about how he goes about selecting new vendors as it adds to his security stack in the different organizations that he's a part of. Listen, Ron is an incredible mind and mindset guy when it comes to cybersecurity in itself. So you're going to be able to pick a lot of gems from the things that he shares. So with that, if you haven't done so already, go down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on other fire conversations just like this one. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right into this intro. What up? What up? Welcome back to another episode of the Simply Secure podcast. This time I am actually ecstatic right now to be hosting and talking to a fellow podcaster. You guys may all know him from the Hacker Valley podcast, Mr. Ron Eddings. I'm actually, is it Eddings or Eddings?
It's Eddings.
It's Eddings?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we got Mr. Ron Eddings popping in here, having a conversation with you guys, and I'm so excited for this because my show was highly influenced by Ron and Chris's podcast. So I'm so excited to have him on here and sharing some of his insights, his thoughts, his perspectives on the show itself. So Ron, go ahead and introduce yourself, my man. Let everybody know what you're excited about.
Thank you. I mean, you did all the heavy lifting for me. Name is Ron Eddings, host of the Hacker Valley Studio podcast. We also run a bunch of other podcasts under Hacker Valley Media. And during the day, I do work at Exonius as a creative director. We're constantly just creating content on both sides, Hacker Valley and at Exonius.
That's awesome. And I'm obviously going to have a lot of these show, like the notes and everything inside of the description and everything else. So feel free to go down there and look up Exonius and some of those different things. But real quick, Ron, here's where I always like to start. As you know, from our previous conversations, I'm a huge Marvel fan, right? So I always like to start with the origin story, man. Like, tell us your origin story. How the heck did you get in this crazy space called cyber?
Well, before I tell you the story, I gotta say that we actually design all of our logos based off of Marvel now. Like we look at like what are our inspirations when it comes to the album art for each Marvel movie, and that's how we are picking all of our new shows. So if you look at Hacker Valley Blue, you'll see a lot of elements of Black Panther, a little element of Thor. So we're trying to do that also.
I love it. I didn't even notice that. So, but now, if I wasn't more of a fan now, I'm even more of a fan at this point. So that's pretty dope.
Yes, sir. And I got my start in cybersecurity and really technology as a whole by just being curious. I was that curious kid that was, somewhat good at athletics. I used to love playing basketball, and I was also really into technology. And me and my friends, we would connect on a personal level outside of school, outside of sports through AOL Instant Messenger. Shout outs to everybody that knows AIM and that has used it. It was almost like the Facebook for us back in the day. And me and my friends, we would go on AOL and we would join chat rooms and we would talk crap to each other. We would talk about our favorite basketball players. Mine was Kobe. I got a picture of Kobe right behind me. Other people's were Shaq. And when someone didn't agree with us in these chat rooms, we would talk a lot of crap to them. And one day I was talking crap to the wrong person. And this person, they used a feature of AOL called direct message. And it allowed you to send files and pictures to someone else on the other side of the chat. Me being young, I was around 12 or 13 at the time. I didn't know any better. They sent me a file. I'm going to open it. So I opened it and my computer screen went black. There was matrix text that was popping up. And my CD-ROM drive kept opening and closing. So like every time it would open, I would have to like forcefully close it because like the automatic piece of it wasn't really working. So it was really awkward. And I thought to myself, if I don't fix this, I'm dead. This is a family computer. I can't have like matrix text on this family computer.
Right.
So, all in all, like that's how I got my start in cybersecurity. I begged the person to tell me how they did it, and they told me. But really the story underneath all of that is when I was young and, coming up, I wasn't the best at sports. I wasn't the best student, but technology was there for me. It was that support system that I really needed and that I could use to learn from. And it's been like a parent to me ever since. Like cybersecurity has helped support my dreams, but also
Mm.
myself and my family from a financial perspective.
That's incredible, man. So I gotta ask this question. One, what was your username in AOL? Do you
That's a good
remember?
question. Of course, of course. My username was Ron 9 and then a D1.
91. I like it.
Yes, sir.
I was Icy Keys 93. So I don't know, I don't really know where that came from or why I picked that in itself, but that was definitely my AOL handle. The other question, just out of curiosity, did your friends also open up the PDF or whatever link that they sent you, or did he only send it to you?
It was only sent to me, and once I learned how to do it, of course, I sent it to all my friends. They were opening it up, had their CD-ROM drives open, cut the computer off. Now you gotta, like, figure out, you're gonna turn your computer back on, you're gonna push the CD-ROM drive closed, so, I went down that path myself.
That's awesome. Hopefully you charged them like, I know the secret. Like I got the antidote. Like give me some money and I'll help you. Like
They just had to say
that's
Kobe was the
hilarious.
best player, that's all they had to do.
Perfect. I like it. That's awesome, man. I always love hearing people's origin stories because it shows the real heart and passion, I think, for the industry itself, right? Like, I feel like most people, they got started some type of IT. I think yours is unique in the fact, like, technically, gratefully, you weren't hacked, right? Like, it wasn't like they stole a lot of your data and things like that,
Right.
but you were at least exposed to a situation where you felt as though, like, well, one, this sucks, but two, that was also really freaking cool. How can I do that myself, right?
Yep,
And technology, like you said, has just been a huge outlet for you ever since.
that's right.
Awesome, man. So here's what I want to do. I do want to dive into a topic that we chatted pretty quickly and briefly about when we were offline and just talking through some of the different things as it pertains to the cybersecurity space. But this is idea of vendor relationships, right? And
Mhm.
how you select vendors from a true cybersecurity professional's perspective, right? Because me on myself, I'm just a vendor, so I'm on the outside looking in a lot of the times, but from your perspective, I'm just curious, man, what does that process look like, right? I guess to paint the scenario, let's say, your boss said, hey, we have something that's on the project, on the docket to say, we need to have more, I don't know, let's pick a topic. Let's say we need to have more endpoint protection, right?
Mhm.
What from there? What does that typical process look like from your boss? How does that conversation start? How do you deliver, right? And kind of take me through those steps.
Okay, so I've been on the vendor side and also on the side of doing corporate security and building security programs. And I got to say, over time, I've learned more and more how to do this the right way. Shout out.
Mm,
So, my boy Chris Cochran, he's the co host of Hacker Valley Studio. He created this
mm,
framework called Easy. And if
mm,
anyone were to follow this Easy framework, they're going to have a huge bit of success. The
mm,
E is an acronym. The E stands for elicit requirements. The A is assess collection plan. S is strive for impact, and Y is yield to feedback. So if we
mm,
start with the E, elicit requirements, that means go to your stakeholders. Whoever asked you to, go through this project of finding better endpoint protection or just endpoint protection from the beginning, the first thing you need to understand is why are they asking you this? What are
mm,
those underlying requirements that are going to dictate the successful deployment or acquisition of an endpoint protection solution? So really
mm,
understanding where are those requirements, and the best way to find that out is by communication. We always talk about what are some of the best skills that a cybersecurity practitioner could have. There are a lot of skills from a technical perspective you can gain, but communication is always number one. If you're a good communicator, you're going to get the requirements that are most important. Not everybody
mm,
has these requirements. So, what I would start with is making a list on my own if I didn't have them for my stakeholder. I would create a spreadsheet and say, hey, this is one of the features or one of the capabilities that I need from a solution. And then in another column, I would have, what is the priority? Is this a must have? Is this a nice to have? Or can this come after I acquire this product, maybe through a feature request? So
Mhm.
I would start there just by from a requirements perspective.
Mhm.
And we can go down the list of the framework, or we could frame it differently if you want to take the question somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm gonna let you keep on rolling with the framework because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm learning a lot myself right now too, right? So I think if you continue with the framework and then I'm writing down some questions in between, we might just like bounce back to
Okay,
it.
let's do it. So the first thing obviously is that a
Yep.
list of requirements, then an assess collection plan. And the
Mhm.
collection plan is really going to be your guide for understanding what data sources are out there that you can
Mhm.
already leverage from. If you have an endpoint protection solution that you want to acquire, what endpoints do you need to deploy it on? You need to first
Mhm.
understand how many endpoints are within my environment. Um, is there already an agent that's out
Mhm.
there that I can use, and compare to that list of requirements, just in case whatever solution that you're looking at doesn't have all the features and capabilities. So
Mhm.
assessing your collection plan is also going to really help you understand where is this information going to go at the end of the day. After we acquire
Mhm.
this data about endpoint protection, where are we going to store it? Are we going to store it in a database? Some old school or traditional security teams will use something like a sim to store all that
Mhm.
information in, and other security teams will try to go with this agentless approach or using APIs to constantly pull information from many different tools and then marry it on the fly. So
Mhm.
that's the second piece: assess collection plan. Then
Mhm.
the S, strive for impact. With this step, you are going through the implementation. You're working with the vendor to get a demo or get an
Mhm.
evaluation of that product. You now have all of your features. Hopefully, you've done some searches and you found a vendor or some capabilities that you can introduce through custom solutions like Python or C, whatever the
Mhm.
case may be, and you're trying to do an evaluation or an implementation. You're seeing, does
Mhm.
this product match my requirements? And then you
Mhm.
go through the list of requirements and you check it off. And that can make your evaluation really easily, because in a perfect world, from a vendor or a security practitioner perspective, you would give
Mhm.
them your requirements just so there's
Yep.
not this run around and all of a sudden you've lost trust with a potential great partner because you were being secretive. The
Right.
partner is there to help you. That's why we call them a partner. And
Mhm.
then the last bit is why, yield to feedback. Once you've
Mhm.
gone through the process of implementing or evaluating a product, the next step is to get feedback from your stakeholder. They ask you to do a specific task, find an endpoint protection solution. You
Mhm.
present your findings, present how well it worked, present what kind of information it gave back to you, present how long it took for you to interact with that information. Did it make your job harder or did it make it easier? And then
Mhm.
you could also use that same set of feedback and provide that to your vendor, saying, hey, we are going to sign, but we have this list of demands. We need to get
Mhm.
these things introduced first. Or we've signed this contract and my stakeholders are upset. They don't like you. You
Right.
have to fulfill these list of things, these requirements that I got from feedback, because feedback is a gift.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're not going to re-sign with you next year. So I
Mhm.
think, following this easy framework, it might not have every single dotted line step to do, but it's at least a framework that you can use to conceptualize implementation of endpoint protection, threat intelligence,
Mhm.
security automation, whatever the case may be when it comes to cybersecurity.
I love that. I love that entire framework. And I don't know if you guys have any documentation or PDFs that people can download or be helpful for that. But if you do, I'm gonna definitely grab that from you and put it in the show notes for everybody else to experience as well. But I do want to come back. I wrote down two big questions. One of them has to do with this the S part of the framework, right? And when you
Mhm.
talked about actually identifying the different types of vendors and trying to schedule demos or get proof of concepts and implementations, right? What do you prefer, right? Like when you're trying to identify these different vendors, what do you prefer when it comes to demos? Are you trying to get to a point where you are having to talk with sales up front and then have the conversation to get a demo? Or are you trying to have, basically no barriers to the information. Like you can sign up for your own demo and test it yourself. What does that look like? What's going on? Listen, I just wanted to take this really quick break to see if you guys are actually enjoying the content that's inside of this show. Because if you are, it will help out the channel a bunch if you go ahead down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if this conversation has truly been fire. But only if it's been fire, though. If it's been some trash, let me know in the comments. Either way, I appreciate the feedback. All right, let's get back into it.
That's a great question. In a perfect world, it'll be self-service where I am going to go through a process, whether it be a form or reaching out to a rep from that vendor, and I'm going to get all of the information I need to succeed with or without the vendor. And at
Mm,
that same time, it's perfectly okay for a rep to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw that you've gone through this self-service process. Do
mm,
you need any assistance?" Because maybe I do, especially when it comes to complicated tools,
mm,
endpoint detection and response solutions. They have a lot of features. Like you don't know how to turn off the fact that a user is logging in with the wrong password and getting locked out of their account, and then it might cause issues with that EDR solution. So,
mm,
having that option to work with the vendor is great. But for
mm,
me, I am a self-taught engineer. Like I've always
mm,
been interested in teaching myself and then getting instruction. It's a
mm.
blessing and a curse, honestly.
Yeah.
And,
We
and
suffer from the same thing.
yeah, resources from the vendor, especially right after I go through this self-service process, resources about some of their most common or popular features,
Mhm,
because that's probably how I found them in the first place. In the case of Axonius, we do asset management. The
mhm,
first thing that we will give our customers is information about how to manage your assets. How to manage your
mhm,
assets if you have many different technology solutions. How to manage your assets if you have a CMDB, another database that stores asset information already. Really
mhm,
giving me the main tenets of the solution would be extremely helpful from a vendor perspective to, give me the confidence, but not also make me feel overwhelmed by communication and the need to be sold.
mhm. So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you can take it in a different direction. But what I'm hearing is you want to test it yourself, first of
Yep.
all, right? Don't give me salespeople. But if I need you, I'll call you. Don't. It's okay to like poke me a little bit, but don't be that guy that's like, hey, like let me talk to you and do this demo with you. Like you just want to be able to self serve, do it yourself, and then come with your own questions when it's time for you to do that.
Yes, and I will say that there would be no issue if a salesperson were to reach out to me while I'm starting my evaluation, my self-service eval,
Mm,
and maybe we would spin up and do a formal proof of concept and get, many different team members involved. But while I'm doing the evaluation on my own, if I was able to get spun up a sandbox or a test
mm,
environment, I would want someone to reach out just to make sure I'm doing okay. I would not
mhm,
want it to be automated though. I feel like a lot of sales organizations have gone this all automation route, and I'm a huge fan of automation, but
yep.
I think the cookie cutter responses when it comes to a human on the other end, it doesn't feel great, especially
Mm,
when, I've worked at companies like Intel. When I have a a name at the end of my email that many security vendors would love to reach out to and work with, the
mhm,
least that you could do is maybe change a few words. Don't make it sound like you hit control C or you have some placeholder in this tool and you're just constantly reaching out. It
mhm,
just doesn't feel like the effort is there, and it might make me also think about the effort when I'm running into bugs in your product.
mm. That's very important because I talk about that a lot in different scenarios and when I go on different shows about the humanized effect, right? Like being a human when
Yeah.
reaching out as a vendor compared to just being like spray and pray approach and just doing a lot of massive action that doesn't get actual results, right?
Right.
But getting very specific and personal to each individual person that you reach out to, and understand that that is a person on the other side of that email, not just hopefully a spam folder that you're getting
Right.
forwarded to. but I want to come back to that one part that you communicated about, um, basically the experience, right? The experience of having that salesperson reach out at the proper time. And I'm just curious from your perspective, Ron, why is that important? Why is it important for the salesperson to engage you at a point where you feel as though you've had time to at least play around in this sandbox type of environment? Um, and I guess the other part of it is a two-headed question. Is there a part that's too soon, right? Like what's that perfect timing look like for you in comparison to your journey of trying to vet out this new tool or this new solution?
So this is why I like speaking to you, because you are really getting to what is going to make me feel great as the end user. And I'm
Yep.
glad you asked, because I've actually heard this from many organizations, but they don't necessarily do it. Is if you have something like self-service, I'm putting my hands on the product. Maybe I have a sandbox. The next thing you'd want to see is if I logged in before. If I haven't
Mm,
even logged in to the solution, it might not be the best time. Maybe you want to like put some type of variable, like if he's registered but hasn't logged in a week, then I'll reach out. Make sure
yep.
he's able to log in. If he
Mm,
registered and he logged in immediately, at that point, I feel like it's open season, fair game. Reach out
mm,
to me, and if you notice that maybe that I have nothing but errors, maybe you have log checking or something like that. I think at that point, a template message is fine. Hey, are you
mm,
having issues uh, configuring a profile for your EDR solution or this
yep.
EDR? Yeah, this EDR solution. Then perfect. Boom. Send me a template. I don't mind, and preferably if it's a template, send me a few documentation resources too while you're also doing that check-in on me.
Mhm. That's perfect because you're being helpful at that point, right? And
Yeah,
as a human, you feel like you're actually being assisted instead of sold, which is
right.
what we all want, right? Like in these scenarios, when I tell people all the time, especially in sales, people want to buy things, but they don't want to be sold, right? But
Yes,
if you show up as just like, hey, I'm naturally here to help you and assist you and have the best experience possible, then you're probably leading to the point of actually getting a sale compared to just saying like, oh, I'm gonna control the entire process and you can only move at my pace that I tell you to move at, right? Like that's frustrating. It creates friction. And there's not a lot of, open time for people to really play with some of your solutions and things from that perspective, right?
right.
Um, One of the things I did want to bring up is, I guess, how does if you are not able to do that, right? Like, say you're searching up a tool, or maybe it's you're trying to solve a problem inside of your organization where people don't necessarily have these open source sandboxes that you could just go ahead and download a trial and self serve yourself. Um, what does that look like for you, right? Like, well, I guess let's paint it the scenario this way. Let's say some competitors do have the sandbox, other competitors don't have the sandbox. Are the ones that don't have the sandbox where you can go and do self-serve and everything else, are those people automatically crossed off the list? Or are those people like knocked down a couple rungs? Like what does that look like? Are you still giving them a chance? I'm just curious, just overall thoughts on that one.
So this is where things get a little interesting,
Mm,
because it's always great to have a self-service, option for potential customers, but if you don't have a good product, that's really going to expose yourself and really make others frustrated if they run into technical difficulties or user experience challenges. What
mm,
I also really value and love out of any company, I think this
mm,
is why a lot of people gravitate towards Amazon, Apple, is because
mm,
there's this ability to find everything else you need besides the product within their website.
mm,
So if I
mm,
can find tips about endpoint protection, like
mm,
what are best practices from a high level without a solution,
mm,
perfect. Like this is giving me trusted leader, trusted advisor vibes that I'd be feeling if they
yep.
had some good information on their website. Now, I don't need the self the self I don't need the sandbox per se,
Mm,
but like I also wouldn't want to put my email on the line to watch a video about the product. I feel like that is
mm.
very strange, there's amazing products out there that have, like, everything on YouTube. One of the great things that I love about working at a vendor, especially the one
Mm,
that I work at, Exonius, we put our whole training on YouTube. There's nothing to hide. Like, if you think
yep.
you can build this product in less time than we did, go for it. Perfect. Like,
Mm,
actually, you're helping out the security community. But if
hmm
you are a trusted advisor, a trusted leader, your information is public to the world, or at least accessible to some extent. I
hmm
know people write books. You wrote a book, and it might cost money, but the reason it costs money is because of publishing, because of
Yep.
other attributes, other things that go along with it. But if
hmm
the price is the product, then I will be paying for that as a customer, not necessarily giving you my email, because that is an exchange of value if I'm
Yep.
watching a video.
hmm
When I have that self-service sandbox, the exchange of value is you've given me a sandbox to play in, but I don't think a video is high enough value for my personal information or even my work information. Because then you have all of my
Absolutely.
coworkers. You can start to
Yep.
guess what is the pattern within our organization for, like, is it Ronald Eddings, R Eddings, whatever it may be.
Right. Right. Exactly. You bring up incredible points there because it's so true, right? Like I talk about that all the time. Like we should have much less gated content. Like
Yes.
my thing is if you're confident that your product works, give it away for free. Right? Like at least a trial. Give somebody 7 days, 10 days, or if it's the video, the demo video, like it's 5 minutes, right? If somebody wants to take 5 minutes to watch a video, like don't make it difficult for them by saying like, "Hey, put in this email in order to watch this video." Just give them the
Right.
video, man. Like let them figure it out. And then if that video is intriguing enough or enticing enough, then they're from that perspective, they can go ahead and go along with the sandbox approach and things like that, right? Like that true exchange of value. Because the value, it's going to be some thoughts inside the video, but the real value is the product, right? Like, let me
Yes.
touch the product.
Right.
Awesome, man. So I do want to come back to this other part because you made a really interesting part when you talked about yield to feedback, right? That last part of the easy formula, the easy method, easy
Yep.
method or easy formula,
Easy framework.
easy framework. There we go. I had the F. But let's take the easy framework. Let's talk about this why, because you talked about um, different, like bringing feedback back to the powers that be and basically saying like, hey, here's the things that I've learned. What is the feedback that you have for me to take back to this vendor, right? Curious to know your thoughts, Ron, on working with vendors who may be earlier to the game, who can implement that feedback quickly, right? Because their product is still maybe in like some type of conceptual phase. Like
Mhm.
it's not a solid, this product's been around for 2 decades type of product yet, right? Like what's the value or I guess the risk appetite for working with some of those baby companies who can grow with you in the things that you need as an organization compared to somebody that's been around for a while and it's like, oh, well, I got to send this to the dev team. And then the dev team takes, 3 months before they even get to it. And then you're just waiting on a release that maybe never even happened in the first place.
Right. It's a huge trade-off. At my last organization, I was working, building security programs for a
hmm
financial technology company. I was working there, and my boss loved to use startups. He
hmm
loved to use startups because they give you that care and attention, and I think the trade-off is support. Like, they'll
hmm
build you whatever feature that you need. They'll be able to resolve your bugs. But what
hmm
about when it's Friday? 5 p.m. You're just about to leave. You got one foot out the door, one hand on the keyboard, and
hmm
the product goes down. Maybe it goes down, it runs into a critical error. Will
hmm
someone be able to be with you on that Friday? At a
hmm
startup, I think somebody will be there, but
hmm
they might not have that problem resolved. At a
hmm
big company, I feel like there's a better chance that not only will they have the problem solved, but they've already hit that problem in the past. They have a
hmm
wider customer pool that just has that know and experience. I
Yep.
love being on the vendor side at an early startup, but when I'm
hmm
building a security program, like the habitual part of me, the part of me that loves habits and consistency, I love
hmm
bigger companies because I know that if I have the right support tier, then I will get
hmm
my questions answered. I'll get my problem solved. I might even get a really well thought out and highly produced training. But when
Yep.
it comes to new features, let's be honest, a big company is going to likely be a lot slower. I've worked with some of the biggest endpoint protection and response
Hmm.
solutions. Those don't come out with features fast because the complexity. They have a
Yep.
big product, they have a big customer size, and there's an agent involved. You can't go updating an agent every 3 weeks. It's not gonna work in production.
Right, right. It's so true. And man, I know we can spend time sitting on here, rapping the entire time, but I know we got time restrictions and things like that. But we might have to have you back on for another episode and dive some more into that part in itself because I think you just bring so much value and knowledge to the space. And I would love to pick your brain a little bit more. But before we sign this thing out, my man, Ron, let them know what's the best way that they can connect with you, how they can find you, and learn more from your incredible content and your incredible mindset.
Yes, appreciate the plug, and you could stay up to date with me and all the great things by visiting hackervalley.com. We also have a Discord. Jump in, chat with me, chat with the whole team, hackervalley.com/Discord. Try to keep everything super short, sweet, and simple. And
Mhm.
LinkedIn, Twitter, IG, whatever the platform is, at Ronald Eddings.
Love it. Well, there you have it, guys. Another incredible conversation with a brilliant mind that's in the cybersecurity space. Ron, I appreciate you having, the time to spend with me and chat with some of these different individuals about this topic. And for everybody else that's out there listening, thank you for taking the time to listen to this incredible conversation and supporting the Simply Secure podcast. So next time, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
So, what do you think? Was that helpful? There's incredible conversations just like this one all throughout this channel. The links on the screen, the videos that you'll see, is actually other videos that's very similar to some of the conversations that I had right here with this guest. So, feel free to go ahead and binge watch some of these incredible conversations with other cybersecurity leaders within the space. And if you found value, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hit the like button because it helps YouTube push this content and this channel to other people in the industry just like you. And obviously, those are the people that I'm trying to reach. So I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again on the next one. Deuces.